So one of the founding statements at Mentl is that all health is mental health. But how important is that link between physical and mental health? Well, today on the Mental Space, I am delighted to be joined by someone who really knows how important it is. Harjit Bahia, who is the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of Zoe ME, and also the founder of Longevity UK. Harjit, welcome
Scott.
to the Mental Space.
Thank you.
Hi guys, Scott here. Before we jump into this amazing conversation, I just want 1 minute of your time. Are you an organisation leading the charge in mental health? Well, now's your chance to be recognised on a grand stage because the Mentl Awards 2024 are open for entries, and this is your opportunity to shine a spotlight on the groundbreaking work you or your organisation has been doing to support mental health. Whether you're a trailblazer in corporate wellbeing, an innovator in mental health technology, a champion for change in your community, our awards celebrate those who are making a real difference. So why wait? Our incredible lineup of judges are waiting for your entries. Enter now and let your work inspire others. Visit mentlawards.com, MENTL awards.com to submit your entry today or find the link in the show notes. Together, let's raise the bar for mental health. Thanks guys. Now back into the podcast.
So I promised my daughter that I'm going to live to 150.
Okay.
And I recognised that I would need to make a few lifestyle changes if that was going to be true.
Yeah.
And we kind of sat down a couple of months ago to try and figure out how I can improve both my physical and my mental health.
Yeah.
Zoe ME, you're relatively new here in the UAE. Yeah. Just give me a little bit and give our audience a little bit of your backstory and what the mission is for Zoe ME here.
Yeah, so I'm a breast cancer specialist and a personal trainer and nutritionist, and I have always worked within healthcare systems in the UK, predominantly London, in and around the NHS hospitals and then on Harley Street.
Yeah.
I've always been interested in how our physical health impacts our mental health, but also our quality of life.
Yeah.
And bringing those things together from a scientific point of view. So everything that you learn at university from physiology, psychology, and all of those things, but applying them to physical health and mental health in a preventative setting and also in a corrective setting. When I was on the patient front line, treating people with chemotherapies and things, I kind of got to a point where pumping people full of chemo just wasn't enough, and not looking at their quality of life as well as their diagnosis, their prognosis, and treating the disease itself, it just wasn't enough for me. I felt like there was more of an impact that I could make. I then went on a bit of a mission. I was a bit confused at the time as to how I can make a more of an impact. Is that by doing things one-to-one with patients, or do I need to go further up the chain in these healthcare systems that I was working in and start to make change at the policy level? So I set up a company called Longevity UK, and what we did with that was we gave patients on chemotherapy advice on nutrition, movement, supplements, and the pillars that we have here at Zoe, alongside their chemotherapy, in the hope that we're looking at their quality of life as well as their diagnosis and thing. One of the big factors that we realized at that point was that there was not enough importance put on the mental health of these patients that we had, and so much so that we created a pillar on its own for these patients. We then went on to, we naturally evolved into a company that then started to become preventative health. So the patients that we were treating one-to-one were on active chemo or just finished chemo. But the wives, the husbands, and the close family unit around these patients were also interested in the approach that we were taking that looked to put together nutrition, movement, sleep, stress, supplements, and use it for themselves to mitigate the risks of anything that they had, either genetically or from their family or what they were worried about getting. So we successfully did that, and Zoe ME is the first inpatient clinic here in the Middle East that uses the same framework and the same fundamentals that we use at Longevity UK, but in an in-person setting, bringing together all of the pillars that we've defined, as I said, nutrition, movement, sleep, the mind, aesthetics and regeneration, but using a framework that uses data from blood and biomarker testing and advanced diagnostics to really understand what that patient or client's risk factors are, baseline health is, and also looking at their natural way of living, what their lifestyle currently is, and then putting together a program that, as I said, mitigates the risk of any chronic disease coming for them.
So we have a tradition on the podcast, which is we always ask 2 questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, what does mental health mean to you? What does it look like in your life?
So mental health for me, it's an interesting question because I have struggled with mental health. So when I think about mental health, it's just naturally, I do think about a time that mental health wasn't great. And with that, I associate feelings of just being down, not motivated, not having much self-compassion as well at the same time. But then I've also am on the other side of that, where mental health for me now is, I don't know, it's joy, it's fulfillment, it's having purpose, it's having comfort, and that comfort comes from a place of the people that are around me. The comfort comes from me being comfortable in myself as well. So I think that's what mental health means for me.
So the follow-up question is, how is it, and you being questioned on a podcast, but how is your mental health today?
I think if I look at the acute mental health, it's full of stress, because we're obviously at the very early stages of Zoe ME, and a lot of us in the team are pretty much the jack of all trades and the master of none right now. So the days look like, anything from seeing patients to approving marketing material to, figuring out what coffee we want to offer the clients and ordering that. But in general, it's good. It's good. Like I said, having been on the other side of it where it wasn't good for a period of time, I'm very tuned into the fact that it is good right now.
Look, we've been working together as well for the last 2 months, and if anyone's like, with the audience who are tuning into the podcast, they might have steadily watched Scott appearing on the podcast going, you've lost a little bit of weight there, Scott. Because I think I was close to 100 kg before I started working with you guys. And now, I'm back down to around 92, 93. So I know the benefit to me, but talk to our audience a little bit about that link between physical and mental health.
Yeah, it's so profound, and I think a good way of describing it is that physical health and mental health and vice versa, it can be a vicious cycle, but also a virtuous cycle as well. And what I mean by that is, if we look at the example of the vicious cycle, so if you are not feeling great, right, for whatever reason, as I mentioned before, you're probably lacking motivation, you're lacking self-compassion, you're lacking a little bit of discipline. And with that, the last thing that most people want to do is to eat a meal that's going to help them feel good. It's going to be to get outside, go for a walk, to exercise. Like, those things just don't go hand in hand when you feel like that. And I can say that from somebody that has struggled with it. But on the other side of it, and similarly, if you physically are overweight or not as active as you used to be, you're also not as likely to start a journey that involves exercise, movement, or whatever that ultimately can help you feel better as well for your mental health. On the flip side, if we look at it as part of the virtuous cycle, when you feel great, you want to fuel your body with great things. You have the motivation to get out there, go to the gym, you're out there seeing friends and family, and all of these things impact your physical health. And when you feel like you look good, or you've just achieved something in the gym, or you've just gone for a run, that then impacts your mental health. And we know that from a physiological point of view as well, in both of those examples, that when you're mentally not great, there is something physiologically going on in terms of biochemistry that can make you want to crave the foods that are probably not as good for you. And so we know from the amygdala there's a pathway that happens there. And also the leptin and ghrelin pathways, which are your hunger hormones and satiety hormones, they go off. On the other side of it, when it is good, all of the biochemicals and all of these pathways seem to be working pretty well as well, which then elevate your mental health more, which then ultimately elevates your physical health more, because you're more likely to want to do things that are good for you.
What surprised me was, because one of the first things you guys said to me as well was like, right, the first thing we want you to do, you don't need to hit the gym.
Yeah.
Let's go and do 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
Just get out and go for a walk.
Yeah.
How impactful just that one simple act was to my mental health.
Yeah.
Why is that? You know, why is it so impactful just to even...
You can see it on many different levels. I think if you're somebody that doesn't make the decision to go out for a walk, the feedback mechanism, the reward that you get from making the decision and doing it alone can completely transform your day, right? With any task that you want to do, whether it's, you'll never go to the gym and regret going to the gym. Yeah. You'll always regret not going to the gym, right? Yeah. And a lot of the barriers to people making changes to their health, being mental or physical, is that first step. And that first step is, in many regards, the hardest one to take, because you don't know what's on the other side of it when you do take that step, right? You don't know if it's going to be of benefit or whether it's not going to be of benefit. And but when you make that step, and it's very similar to, I don't know if you remember when you did the ice bath, right?
I do remember.
When you're about to step foot into that cold water, everything in your mind and body is telling you, do not do this. Why are you doing it? And that inner talk for that 10 seconds that you have is just fueling you to just do the complete opposite. But then you do it. Yeah. And then after that, it's such, the endorphins that you get from just understanding that you didn't want to do something, but you did it, is very powerful.
I have to say, I did completely wimp out at the 5, I think it was 5 degrees that I don't, but I did the 10.
You did the 10 for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And
it felt really good.
That's amazing. That's like, you know, just that alone, like taking out the time, taking out what degree it is, you did something that pushed you out of your comfort zone that you didn't want to do, and you did it. So that feedback mechanism is amazing.
The thing that struck me as well on this journey with you as well is how important, you know, the questions about our psychology and the questions about mental health. So it isn't just go and do this workout. Yeah. I mean, we've sat down, we've had some very open conversations, and you know, before I started working with you guys as well, I would take, you know, over-the-counter medication to calm my nerves. I haven't taken that in months. I've also, and it's really, really strange, like I signed up with you guys at the beginning of what's going to be a really busy time for the business. And I think I remember saying to you that I wanted to kind of optimize myself so I could help the mission. But actually that's gone in very much internal, in that, you know, I've gone back into therapy and dealt with some really, really dark stuff from my past, and said, and, you know, revealed things to my family that I've had buried for decades. And it's just interesting, that level of energy versus your ability to actually cope or deal with, perhaps, you know, and confront dark things from your past. It sounds like you've kind of gone through that journey in your past as well.
I've had, as I said, I've had a period of time where my mental health has not been great. And when I set up Longevity, there's so many reasons why I set it up. And like with many things, when people set up something new, usually there's a personal story behind it, right? I have to give full credit, first of all, to my parents at that time, because they were phenomenal in helping me get through that. And the things that I did that involved physical health, and then also going into therapy and all of those type of things, like, they worked and they were impactful, and done in the right way with the right support around you as a network, but also the person that's going to guide you through a journey to help you get there. You need the right support around you, right? And that's one of the things that at Zoe ME and at Longevity that we are really proud to say that is our priority. Our priority is to look at our clients mentally, physically, understand where they want to get to, understand where we think is a realistic target for them to get to, and take all of the guesswork out of the program for them and help them understand that by these few things, the byproduct of it will be the weight loss that you get, if that's what you're chasing, and the mental health. So I don't know if you remember in the consultations that we originally had that I think I said to you a couple of times that, Scott, just check out of the process. These are the boxes that you need to tick, and as a byproduct, the weight loss will be there, the mental health will be there. Just check out of all of that. Just dial into the fact that, you know what, I'm going to try and do these 3 things in the day, and then see how that goes.
Why Dubai?
Dubai, well, we as Longevity UK have done well out here in terms of the clients that we have. When Longevity UK started, it was in the virtual model, and that in many regards was brilliant for us because it allowed us to use our experts in the UK globally. So currently we offer services in the UK, here, and Hong Kong. In Dubai, we've had a lot of interest of people wanting that one-to-one physical interaction, not the virtual. And so this feels like the place that felt right from a business point of view. Also, Dubai is, as we all know, it's at the forefront of change. Like if you want to challenge the status quo, the place to do it is here. And you get a lot of support here. The people that live here are ready for change, ready to try new things, ready to challenge themselves. So it just feels like it's the perfect place to do this.
It's fascinating as well because we've seen the conversation around health and now mental health just exponentially get more and more important and more even on the government agenda. Like we've had the fitness challenge for a few years now, and that's just grown in size and impact every year. Now we've had the Dubai government announce the mental wealth framework, and they have a quality of life vision for 2030. So it seems like both of us are in the right space at the right time. I'm going to say, you talked about your pillars, and you talked about sleep and nutrition and that sort of thing. Let's just touch on each of those pillars quickly and the importance of one. You've also had me on a meal plan, so nutrition, and that's been interesting to see, the change in eating different types of food. But talk to me about that importance between the relationship between nutrition and our mental health, because I think there's a growing conversation and a growing understanding that what we put in our stomachs can actually end up in our heads.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of research that helps us understand that your gut health impacts your mental health, and the factors and the interventions that improve your gut health or deal with your gut health come from the foods that you eat, the supplements that you take, how much you're sleeping, that the circadian rhythm also affects that. But when it comes to food, one of the things that we do here is we assess the gut to see what the gut flora is like. Any imbalances in the bacteria in the gut, the first thing that usually goes off is your mental health. So you can have anxiety, you can be the person that overthinks, catastrophizes, or you can just be the person that just doesn't have that extra push in them to go forward. And a lot of the things that you can do for the gut comes from the foods. It comes from what we call prebiotics. It's the foods that you're putting into your stomach that help that bacteria grow and feed that bacteria. The best sources of those are nutrient dense sources, and you know yourself from the meal prep that you have. When people are looking at what ingredients to or what foods to pick, usually foods that are single source ingredients. So chicken breast doesn't have any ingredients, right? And when you're picking up packets of foods, like looking at foods that don't have 4 or 5 things that you can't pronounce because they're just chemicals. And with gut health, you can be, if you're looking at focusing on increasing your fiber intake, nutrient dense foods, that is going to help with the gut. But as you know, you can go one step further and you can do a stool sample and look at what is the bacterial growth there, and then start to incorporate things like probiotics, which are just bacteria that you consume, to just level out any undergrowth or overgrowth that you have there. And again, so when you fix that, the gut-brain axis, which is the communication between the gut and the brain, one of the byproducts of that is that it can help mental health significantly.
One of the things that the Dubai Wealth Framework wants to tackle
Yeah.
is and this is a problem around the world,
Yeah.
is the pace of life.
Yeah.
And we are seeing, globally as
Yeah.
well as here in this region, really, really high burnout.
Yeah.
How is the work you do, from your perspective, helping people tackle that sense of burnout?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we get presented with the most in the last year before a client even speaks to us is you can see that that client is struggling to manage everything that they're managing to do, and it's because it some people might say it's self-inflicted, right? Like if you're on the go all the time, if you're not scheduling that time for yourself,
Yeah.
and not prioritizing it, then yeah, maybe. But one of the first things that we do with clients that come in is look at what their diary is like, because quite often people come in and say, oh, I don't have time to go for the walk, I don't have time to exercise, I'm so busy, I've got to be at work, I've got meetings and everything. So we help them look at what their diary is like on an average week, and we help them schedule things in the diary that they can have that time just to themselves.
Yeah.
And I've seen from some of the things that you've documented along your journey with just simple things like getting outside for a walk by yourself, to just have that moment to just maybe think about what's coming in the day, right? But just be with your thoughts. And that is so powerful when it comes to mitigating the risks of burnout and things, because quite often why burnout happens is we are just overstimulated. We are just thinking constantly, managing tasks and prioritizing and all of those type of things, and not really allowing ourselves to just have a moment.
Yeah.
I know that you do it. You walk with a podcast on. I myself also do that. If I know that I've got a really intense day coming along, I have to be outside in the morning, and I have to be, quite often I take my AirPods, because if I see people, I don't want to stop and have a conversation, because
So
I
if
just
they
want to,
think,
I just
see,
want
now
to
the
be
cat's out the bag though. Now
Yeah.
everyone's going to go, "We know you're lying,
I
Harjit."
just want to be in the zone, and quite
Yeah.
often nothing's playing, but
Yeah.
it gives me that 20 minutes before I know that as soon as I pick up my phone and I open my laptop, or I even just engage in the fact that I have to work,
Yeah.
it's gone. And similarly in the evenings as well. I know that you go for walks in the evening as well, from some of the content that you've made, and you found that as a valuable tool.
Absolutely.
And ultimately at Zoe and Me, what we want to do is give our clients the tools to put in their toolkit, that whatever stage they are in their life, like we're always going to have a time where work is way busier than it normally is. We're going to have family priorities that come up. We're going to have so many different things, and it shifts, right? But if you have a toolkit that helps you understand that, you know what, the next week at work is going to be so intense that I need to make sure that for 10 minutes I either sit on the balcony or I go outside for a walk.
Yeah.
And that is non-negotiable, right? Like, put in that time for yourself in the diary, much like if you had a meeting with an investor, your boss. It's non-negotiable, and we just prioritize it, right? But you can prioritize your own self-care as well.
And that's one of the things that so many of us don't do, isn't it? In that, if you think about our Outlook calendar, it's all full of commitments to meetings and clients and customers, and on top of that you'll have school runs, and you'll have the things that you're going to do for everybody else around you. But how often do we actually plug into our Outlook calendar and go? I mean, that's one of the things you guys have done with me, is like, nope, that's when you go into the gym, that's when so it's actually plugged in there as part of, and as important as everything else.
Yeah, because again, the byproduct of you spending that 10-20 minutes to yourself is the fact that you may the probability is you may show up as a better boss, as a more patient mum, more patient dad. You might be more present in the family environment, because you've taken that minute to just do whatever you need to do. And we see it a lot with clients that are I'll use my sister as an example. My sister has 2 children under the age of 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. She's a lawyer, she's a mum, she's a sister, she's a daughter, she's a wife, and she has a lot going on, right? But she schedules the time for herself, be that 10 minutes or be that an hour to go and get her nails done, or just go for a walk. And the repercussions of doing that is that she admits herself, she shows up as a better mum, a better, you know. So
I mean, it's fascinating even just when you're on that walk, like you say, like the relationship between movement and thinking through problems. Like where if I'm just sat eating a burger, thinking through problems, it's catastrophizing. If I'm out walking or running or on a bicycle or swimming, you're thinking through problems, but you're also somehow thinking about solutions as well. It just seems to be a more positive.
You get into that natural flow state, and it's from feedback that we get from clients, and I know from myself, if there's a business problem, if there's a, let's say I've got a patient that I can't quite figure out like what is the right approach to do for this specific patient, I know that when I spend that moment alone by myself, my brain will naturally start to come up with the ideas that I need it to come up with. If I'm in a pressured environment, if I've got a lot of people around me, if I'm busy doing multiple tasks, it's unfair for my brain to start to get creative as well as like to problem solve immediately with what I'm doing as well, right?
Let's talk about sort of Dubai and UAE for a second as well. Like, when I started with you guys, I had like different things in my head. Like, okay, so I was overweight. I was, you know, I still had buried trauma. But at the same time, I was a startup. I am a startup with a mission. There's a lot of ambition in Dubai. There are a lot of startups. There are a lot of organizations. I mean, like Dubai is built on ambition. One of the things that had really surprised me was the energy levels that I got out of engaging with your program. So let's just talk about, you know, in terms of, you know, if we talk about mental wealth, which I love the way that Dubai has kind of reframed mental health to mental wealth. How important that is, particularly when we are driven and we are chasing goals and we do want to make an impact and have that purpose.
It's so powerful. Like, if we are in such a hustler culture here, right? And it's very easy to get carried away with thinking that doing more is going to get us more, right? But quite often, and it's the same with a health journey, doing 20 new things on day one is not going to be the best solution. With a lot of our clients, our main role is to give them the basics, the low-hanging fruit in each of the pillars to just start with. And you sometimes get clients that can do that for a sustained period of time, and they're on their way, and you can start to challenge them a little bit more, right? But everybody just needs to start from doing one new thing, one different thing, and it has such a profound impact. And much like with the hustler culture that we were talking about, like piling on more things into your diary, the byproduct of that is not going to be guaranteed more revenue, more business, or whatever. Actually, if we're really honest with it, it comes with more stress. It comes with a lot more problems. You may, best case scenario, end up with all 10 of those things coming through. Then you've got a different problem because now you have to move forward and deliver on those 10 things,
in 10 different directions.
Yeah, I think that's the reason that we do the program the way that we do it is with that in mind. Like, there's value for all of us to just step it down a notch.
I've talked on the podcast before about this idea of hustle culture. And if we talk again, we're in a city where there's so many startups, and this always confuses me. The figures show us that 9 out of 10 startups fail, and yet we glorify hustle culture. And I've always long said, like, what about we invest in, you know, the well-being of the founder, the well-being of the startup, as much as what they're doing? Would we see that ratio of 9 to 10 actually improve?
In many regards, Scott, I think that when you have people that take an approach or are managing their health, it's quite often demonized. The hustler culture is the one that everybody wants to be, right? But if we take some simple stats, like for every 45 minutes of sleep debt that you accrue, you lose 10% of your decision-making ability. Now, if you're a CEO that's coming to us and you're telling me that I don't need more than 4 hours sleep, like, why would I do that? I don't need to rest. And you think about that stat that you've just put out there. It's very difficult for me to think that you're performing at your best because of X, Y, and Z. you very quickly, and one of the things when we have clients like that present to us, we say to them in the sleep pillar, sleep at the same time each night for at least a week and wake up without an alarm, and you tell me how you feel. Once they feel that tangible benefit of how they're performing, how they feel, they will never go back to thinking that that 4 hours of sleep is enough for them. Layer on top of that the fact that they're going to be eating better, the fact that they're going to be doing a little bit of exercise. The performance that they get from that is, it's just something that they will never go back from, you know. And I think we need to spread the message more of that than you need to be working long hours, sleep is for whatever, you know, like
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
actually you will,
yeah,
unfortunately.
exactly. And I think it doesn't it doesn't send the right message out to younger people that are wanting to have a creative idea and make a business out of it, because the downside of the hustler culture is more burnout, mental health off, physical health also off, right? So things like your risk factors for chronic disease, obesity in itself, they go up.
We talk about problem solving though. I mean, to be a startup is to have to problem solve constantly. And we know that when people are burned out, I mean, some of the symptoms of burnout, one of the big victims of burnout is a lack of, an inability to do creative thinking, to problem solve. So actually, if you embrace well-being, you're actually optimizing yourself for business success.
Yeah, exactly. And it's brilliant what you've just said, because I wish more people could understand that. I think you being on your health journey now and previously, some of the things that you mentioned that you notice is the fact that you're more productive, and you, even when we did the ice bath, I think you had to write something, and you said that you just got into the
smashed it.
you got into the zone, and you're just able to write it way quicker, right? And I also know, even from myself, that I'm quite selfish with my time and my boundaries. But if I'm not, then I can't show up for the clients that are, and the patients that we have, my team and my family, my partner, you know, I can't show up as the person that I want to be.
It's fascinating you use the word selfish. I mean, we often say, and I've said it so many times, that, you know, self-care is not selfish. But it is actually quite difficult to do for many people, to actually prioritize ourselves. So what would your advice be? Maybe top 3 or even top 1 thing, you know, for people to start being that little bit more selfish and start prioritizing themselves?
My advice would be that there's never going to be, we all have, and I don't want to use this, but I think I have to in the context for what I'm about to say. We all have 24 hours in a day. Some of us have more things that are our priority that we have to spend the time doing. If you're a mum, there's certain things you cannot not do, right? If you're running a business, there's certain things that you cannot prioritize in action. But that ability to prioritize is really important. Like, if you're telling me that you don't have the time to go for a 10-minute walk, is that really the case? Like, let's look at what else that you're doing, and let's look at what else you're prioritizing. Is that really a priority, you know? My advice would be to just have a good look at your calendar, have a good look at what the week looks like, what the day looks like, and just imagine that that self-care is non-negotiable. Like, I have to do it. Much like I have to brush my teeth, I have to have my breakfast, I have to get in a taxi at this time to get to the meeting at that time. It's non-negotiable, right? Find that non-negotiable time for yourself, and it doesn't have to be hours on the gym floor, hours doing your steps, just even 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. Do that. And then I think my second one, if I can, would be, don't overlook the power of sleep. Just don't overlook it. If you can, for just a short period of time, try and go to bed at the same time. I don't care what your bedtime routine is, what the sleep hygiene is, whether you've just watched TV, but just try and sleep at the same time for a short period of time, and tune into how you feel. Because once you have that feeling, it's very hard to go back from that.
I can absolutely relate to that, because I'm on the flip side of that over the past month. Ironically, the Olympics has been really bad for me
Yeah,
because you're up till
Because of the
midnight
time zone,
watching.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm really, really
Yeah.
sad it's over, but I'm really, really
Yeah.
glad it's over. So
Yeah.
I actually go to bed at a reasonable time. Harjit, it's been amazing chatting to you, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing with us as well at Mentl. If people want to get in touch with you or find out more about your mission, how can they get in touch with you?
So they can go on to my LinkedIn, Harjit Bahia, or they can just go onto our website, www.zoe-me.com.
Brilliant. An amazing episode of The Mental Space. If you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, or you want to learn more and find out more inspiring conversations, remember you can subscribe to the podcast. It helps us more than you know. If you're watching on YouTube, the button's just there. Press subscribe and we can bring you more conversations. Once again, Harjit, thank you for joining us on The Mental Space.
Thank you.